and welcome to this conversation about how progressive and innovative schools from around the world rethink and collaborate in building the future of education. For nearly a century, we have been speaking of two pedagogical approaches, traditionalism and progressivism. To make it brief, at a progressive institution, a teacher develops a curriculum and students approach it as a ground for their own intellectual interests, often with hands-on activities, personalized calendars, and group work. In the next 60 minutes, we are going to bring together leaders from 6 of these schools to discuss where they are now and what they think should happen next. We'll be focusing on LEAPS, short for Leading Educational Advancement Through Progressive Schools, which don't follow traditional ways, how they face and foresee the after COVID-19. My name is Ayşe Gürsert. I'm an international journalist, and I will be moderating this webinar today. 6 speakers from 5 countries, all educators, have been breaking boundaries with their institutions for quite some time. What can we take away from their experience during the pandemic? How do they navigate the challenges and redefine learning for a brand new world? We are about to find out. This is how we will proceed. We have a discussion for about 40 minutes to be followed by an audience Q&A. Yes, you can join the conversation with a question at any time. On the right-hand corner of your screen, you will see the Ask a Question blue icon. Just please put your question in English, as it will be our common language today, and we will do our best to get to it. Without further ado, let me present you our panelists. From Qatar, Mariam Al-Hajri, hello and welcome. You are currently establishing the first progressive school in Qatar. It's called Akademiyati, which opens its doors in August, this past August. Currently, there are 39 students between the ages of 3 and 6. There are 8 collaborators, which is a wonderful word you use for your teachers, and a total of 15 staff. It is a groundbreaking school with a new vision, quite ambitious too, I must say, as you would like it to see grow and expand to elementary, middle, and high school. Welcome. From the United Kingdom, Dr. Francis Wilby, hello. You are the head of international development at Lumiere Education in the UK. Lumiere schools use project-based learning, democratic participation, which gives me hope for future politicians, and competencies-based assessment, and basically throwing out traditional testing and linear curricula. Welcome. From the Netherlands, Rob Huben, hello. You are the school manager of Agora and have been for 5 years. Students at Agora range from 12 to 18 years old, although there are no year groups really. And each of them is given control of their own educational journey. They are able to explore and learn about topics which interest them. The staff are responsible for around 17 students each. Welcome. From the UK, Stuart Bamford, co-founder of Kingsland Pre-Prep, hello. Your school opened in September 2018 for early years in education. Creativeness is at the heart of this truly beautifully designed pre-prep nursery, inspired by the magical world of children's literature and artistic filmmakers. Kingsland challenges the culture of box-ticking education. Welcome. From India, Gitanjali Sarangan, hello.
Hi.
You are the founder and executive director of Dhara Foundation, which was created about 8 years ago. Your long years of working with children and adults culminated in making Dhara Foundation a true success story. It's a non-profit organization with a vision to foster a culture of respect and belonging for all learners. Welcome.
Thank you.
From France, Fanny Pacey-Criblier, founder of Hub School 21. Hello.
Hello.
In your own words, you're a teacher, a connected entrepreneur, and a committed citizen. Your school opened in January 2017. You realized several transdisciplinary projects since to build with your young pupils learning techniques and to train the children to use digital schools. Particularly, there's a project that I like a lot that you did in 2014 when you created one of the first tweet class in France. I'm very excited to hear about how you currently incorporate social networks beyond the classroom. And welcome to all of you joining us today. Let's begin with Mariam Al-Hadri, please. You are currently the director of Academiati in Qatar, but before that, you co-founded a pioneering website that set new standards for Arabic web presence. Hence, you are well versed in new learning methods through digital school. Actually, Qatar has succeeded in switching rapidly to online education during the COVID-19. This time has been transformative for everyone indeed. In your view, Mariam Al-Hadri, how can schools increase their organizational readiness for a smooth switch from normal setting to online that would continue on the long run?
Thank you, Aisha. Thank you very much for that introduction. I think, yes, we are in really exceptional times. As Her Excellency in her recent message said that they are very surreal times, and we are all reflecting and trying to learn lessons from what's going on around us. I think one of the biggest learnings for me is how adaptable we are as human beings, how fast we can change. I mean, so many things that we assumed were very, very hard to do and very hard changes to bring about happened overnight. When the right circumstances were there, everything happened very smoothly and everybody was ready for that change. I think in terms of organizations, educational organizations, I would say a lot of things have been questioned. What does it mean to do a learning experience? What does assessment mean now that, I mean, we don't have the controlled testing environment anymore? Everything was looked at and questioned again to try to realize what is authentic and what is not. I think one of the big learnings for organizations to be ready for such situations is to invest in building child agency, because I believe child agency and independent work were one of the most important aspects and one of the great enablers for this change. Children are no longer in that environment where the teacher is directing everything. The teacher might have an interaction with them, but they need to be doing a lot of independent work. And I think one of the other great enablers would be educating parents on what is the role, what is authentic learning? How do you manage authentic learning? We saw in the weeks that went by how many parents were going back to rote learning, going back to repetitive tasks, busy work for children. I think it makes a huge difference if we invest in educating our parents about authentic learning and authentic education. I think also our teachers or collaborators in our case, they need a different skill set of how to be online, how to produce content online, how to, all the technical aspects, all of these skills we need to build up. Huge possibilities, I think, for collaborations also for schools and students and different teachers with all the online platforms.
Thank you so much, Mariam Al-Hadri. You actually used a wonderful term, a question, what is authentic teaching? And you linked it to parents. So I know for a fact that for many parents, time management has been quite difficult. Let's connect with Rob Hoban from the Netherlands for that question. If we take these past few weeks, Rob, as a new start in the educational ecosystem, how has the school and family partnerships that Mariam Al-Hajri wonderfully mentioned, how can it be developed in your view? And how can the school play a role in supporting parents at home and vice versa? Rob?
Yeah, well, first of all, I have to explain a little bit about what we were doing at Agora before all of this happened, because we asked children just a simple question when they enter our school. That's, what do you want to do? What do you want to do, make, or learn? So we make sure that they start a project they would love to be in. And of course, when you are in a project you love to be in, and then you need to stay at home, then that isn't that big of an issue. There isn't that much expected from parents to give guidance and stuff like that, because the kids are motivated from the inside. But what we saw is that the triangle between children, school, and parents, it got closer. And that's because every parent now can sit in when we do a coach talk with the children. Every parent can sit in and enjoy and be a little bit jealous when their kids are studying or developing or making something. So our school and our system got more transparent for them. And that had a big benefit for us.
Yes, and Rob, a second part of the question, it's interesting too, because you talk about this triangle, which is school, you know, the students and the parents. So there is the triangle has the distance shrunk, or do you feel like currently it's actually expanding and getting more distant at Agora?
No, it really has shrunk, because we really sit in more now with the three of us, people from school, children, and parents. Of course, we miss the fourth thing, and that's because it's a triangle at the moment. Because normally our children were also going outside to visit companies, to see how something builds, to see how something works out. So we really are missing that one. But because we focused at school and not at knowledge transfer, but on learning skills, they are still able to do that by the internet. It's not as good as really live visiting somebody. But I really think that we as Agora benefit of the fact that we have always been focusing on learning skills, because we really believe that if you focus on learning skills, knowledge transfer gets into an overdrive when these kids know how to handle the skills and get to the knowledge.
Well, Rob, I hope that triangle soon will become a rectangle. Thank you so much. And continuing on this topic, let's maybe connect to France, to Fanny Payset-Criblier. Fanny, you're in France, and amid the many principles of actions in your school, experimenting and implementing the internet, social networks, e-learning platforms, robotics, coding that allow children to learn at their own pace, all this was already present in your school from the get-go. However, now that we are currently living in the COVID-19 era, and we're looking at what will become after, to move forward from close to distance teaching, what Rob Hoban was talking about, you also argue, Fanny, that one ought to learn and unlearn, that this is the big change that requires new tools and new approaches. Can you explain that, please?
Thank you for the question. Yes, it's very important to unlearn and relearn, and it's our as learners, we are all learners in our school. And what I want to insist on is that we are not only a digital school, because of course we were ready with using some tools such as computers, an e-learning platform, robotics, social media and everything, but we also use nature, external activities, going to museums and everything. So we have to reinvent everything with COVID-19. It's not only digital tools. Concerning about digital tools, for sure, we had already those tools, but we didn't use all the capacity or they had. And we had to relearn how to use them better and to train the team. So one of the things we can rely on in our school is collective intelligence and team building. And it's really important during this period to rely on this and to try to find new solutions with also people out of our school. For example, we are working with companies, and during this time, they help us also to train the team for using distance tools from the place they were to connect children, for example. So we have to strengthen during this period soft skills such as creativity, to find new ways to problem solving, because every day is a new challenge. We don't know how the day is going to come. Are the children going to be connected? Where they are all in different places to learn. So it's a lot of adaptability, and it's a new way. We have to reinvent everything, even if it's a key, if it's an asset of the team. Okay.
Thank you so much, Fanny. To reinvent everything. Now that's something that on another continent, in another country, another woman, Gitanjali Sarangan, has been doing for some time. Gitanjali, through a range of programs that I know you mentored and trained educators, therapists, teachers, educational assistants or cross organizations, you do know one thing or two about what Fanny Peissé-Griblier was talking about in terms of the collective intelligence and the team building. You have also, Gitanjali, a remarkable philosophy that ever since you whispered it to me, I have not forgotten, and I think that every educators and parents will put it somewhere in their little memory, is please have a plan, but hold it lightly. Can you please expand on that, please?
Okay, I think first of all, I'm going to just add on to what Rob and the others have also said, where and I go back to what you said with please have a plan, but hold it lightly, because I think the COVID situation has done a whole lot of things. And if I had to put down a few things, given the nature of the children that we work with, which is also children with varied learning abilities, I feel this has given us an opportunity to normalize equality. There are many things that children could never access as regular school-going children. But this has allowed us to design, to innovate, to look at how arts practices could be brought to the children digitally. I mean, I was the most dismissal of saying, how can you teach music, movement, theater, drama when there's no touch and contact? But the children have truly taught us that social distancing has never meant emotional distancing. So I think the connection that we've had with the children, with the parents, with the team has really redefined what team building skills should be. So one would really think you need to motivate, you have to look at design thinking, you have to look at getting everybody to access plans and curriculum and content, But I think what this has allowed us to do is that the parents are an equal stakeholder in the process, and nothing could be more beautiful than this. Every adversity is an opportunity. While yes, I am very mindful of the fact that it has been suffering for lots of us, but I think here the fact that parents have been a part of our designs and plans. They're accessing this online. They're preparing the materials for it. That itself has brought in an element of an observer and a supervisor who strengthens the confidence of a facilitator. And I think this is something that has beautifully allowed the team to redefine team goals. Like I joke and say, the lockdown has really got me to reset family goals. I've had too much of family. But I think for teams right now, it's so important to see the strengths of how we're planning and innovating each day. Like we're cooking, we're doing dance and movement with the children. And what has been beautiful for us is to see the way they've been responding. So I think the fears of adaptability, how do you prepare for change, is what we would always ask ourselves. And I think here you just prepare intuitively, you access the warriorship of learning in you, which is what each one of our children have done, each one of the families have done, and just trusting the process that no, they will learn. And I think that has been a beautiful learning for us. And yeah, so do hold, make the plan, keep it all ready. You never know what's going to happen, but then make sure plan B, C, D are the ones that are going to save you. And that's what it is.
Thank you so much, Gitanjali Sarangan. How do you prepare for change? Well, let's have that question, Gitanjali, you just asked, and maybe present to Stuart Bamford, who is in the United Kingdom. Stuart, your school has 6 spacious classrooms, a performance studio, an enchanted garden, an immersive imaginarium which provides children with a magical environment to learn and play in daily. But aren't those places deserted today? And how do you find a solution that is going to be inclusive of everyone? And Stuart, in your school, how do you provide a dynamic and forward-thinking education in a time of crisis at a school where what Gitanjali Sarangan was mentioning, the play, the relation with the other is very important? Stuart Bamford?
Hi, yes, thank you for the question. Yeah, to put us in context, yes, we're in a big city, so London school in the UK for children 2, 3 and 4 mainly. And they're all in an environment where the pressure for the schools that they'll go on to is huge. And therefore, a lot of them are assessed at the age of 3 or 4 to even get into those schools. So we come from a place of involving families a lot in a child's education. I mean, Kingsland's one of our 3 schools, Rocket Productions, and at a Rocket school, it's an experience for the child, but it's largely an experience for the parents as well. So we've taken this opportunity of obviously the world being in crisis and lockdown as an opportunity to support parents and to almost reset education especially from an early years perspective, and in perspective that children need to know certain things in order to prepare them for the next stage of education. So that's been a big part of it. Obviously, we're working with parents who have the pressure of working from home, have the pressure of children that are not great independent learners at that age, and therefore also looking at the pressure that's coming at them from the next level of school. So our idea is to sort of really help the parents understand that the play aspect of children hasn't gone away. Children play, they're constantly playing. However, the problem with education as a straight and narrow path that's been for so many years is that play has often been dismissed from education. So we are engaging parents in a curriculum at home that really sparks imagination for children, which then they can use their play skills and their creativity to almost teach their parents as well. This is a great experience, and hopefully bring that family bond and the involvement of parents in their child's education a little bit less daunting.
So Stuart Bamford, it's almost like you're talking about a revolution where the children are leading the parents. Let's stay in the UK for a minute and turn over to Dr. Francis Wilby. It's true that these past few weeks, as Stuart Bamford mentioned, have truly transformed the meaning and the approach to learning, teaching, and education. But what challenges are specific to the progressive school models, and how can they be mitigated in your view? And if I may ask a second quick question, Dr. Francis Wilby, what has been effective in the past few weeks? In other words, what's a keeper here?
Great, thank you for the question. So across the Lumiere network of pilot schools that we have, schools working in the UK, but also in India, in Budapest, in Europe. So we're kind of seeing trends emerging. I think for innovative education, the particular challenges are, as we've already discussed, the idea of personalisation becomes problematic when you're not in the classroom working with a child one-to-one. The idea of outdoor learning, particularly in the UK, is something that, particularly in innovative schools, they value, as Stuart has said, the role of play and outdoor learning, and that's obviously at the moment something a challenge with children at home, but also the idea in innovative education that we really should be using our knowledge. So the idea of applied learning and practical projects, and certainly at Lumiere Stowford, where we're based on a working farm, very lucky, a kind of beautiful setting, the children work very much outdoor with the animals on the land, where they apply their learning, and that practicality is certainly challenged at the moment. And one of the key elements that we've discussed, as Rob discussed as well, is the idea of collaboration. So we really support the children to collaborate, work in teams. We work on those kind of competencies, but at the moment they're all in their own homes. So we've had to come up with other strategies and ways to support those key areas. So really we've had to pare it back and say, what is important here? What are the key things we need to maintain? And to speak to your question about, you know, how do we get over these challenges? Really, I think our main takeaway has been to consult with parents and give them multiple access points. So we haven't used a one-size-fits-all model. We've really understood that for some families, this is really a challenge. So the idea that they will be online every day doing schoolwork is actually difficult for them. So we've offered a kind of menu of activities. We've offered multiple access points where parents with their children can dip in and out. And really, for me, the takeaway that you tagged on at the end is allowing the children to start shaping their curriculum. You know, that's what we've always done at Lumiere, but here it's been really wonderful to see, as we've had our connected, we have a Friday feedback session in small groups on Zoom, and really the children have started to say, I'm doing a project on X, I'd really want to share it. Another child would say, can we do some joint projects together in pairs? So actually what we found is they are driving and they are telling us what they want. So really some incredible things happening.
Oh, I like to continue. This is wonderful. This conversation by evoking, maybe on the second part, the individuality of each school here today. There is something, whether it's a traditional or a progressive school, I think can take away from the innovations that you're placing in your schools. Mariam Al-Hajri, let's start with you. You're the director of Academiati, which is a part of the Qatar Foundation, and it's located in Education City in Doha, where the campuses are temporarily closed, if I'm not mistaken, due to COVID-19. Nevertheless, learning continues through the online platforms. Can you tell us about the conversations and actions taking place out there, particularly at Academiati? And I know your school is dedicated to building a focus on student-centered curriculum, which is something that Dr. Francis Wilby mentioned, for instance. And And I know, Mariam, that you don't want to duplicate what you did at school, and you want to create something new for this online platform. So what are some of the steps that you take to make that happen? Mariam Al-Hajri.
Yes, Aisha. So when we started to operate on a distant learning model, everyone assumed it would last for most 3 weeks, but we progressed, and the predictions were moving from weeks to months and sometimes years, and this has shaped what we were doing. When we started also, the change was so fast, and parents were working from home and supervising their child's learning. Wellness was a great concern, and child trauma was a possibility. And we wanted to handle this change very, very carefully. We wanted to not overwhelm our families, especially that we work with a critical age group, 3 to 6 years old, who are used to natural learning and play-based learning environment. We knew we couldn't duplicate, as you said, but and most of our parents didn't want the crisis to be a reason for their children to be abruptly introduced to the online devices world. When we really worked really hard to build real and natural learning environments, the last thing we wanted to do was to have our kids just meet on scripted online daily meetings with their collaborators where they are mostly muted and end up having to work on one-dimensional flat worksheets. So we have been for a long time nurturing their independence, their agency. So well, we didn't want to jeopardize it. That's why we decided to activate our Strong Parents community. And we started posting quests for our students on the Instagram account, which is available to everybody around the world. And they can choose their quests or lead their own quests. The quests, of course, were simplified, and we made sure they did not, they only needed things that were available around the house. This enabled the families to adapt, the learning to their family situation and their needs. We also posted books reading by our collaborators every day in Arabic and English, because we believe great children literature is a potent way to activate child's imagination. We used an app to experiment with personalization through different channels for each child. So this was our way of experimenting on how we can personalize online. We sent cooking ingredients to students at home because the cooking component was such an important part of our program, and we didn't want it to be compromised. We arranged talks to different experts with our children based on their interests, like tool makers, jugglers, fashion designers. Science experiments were conducted, and they were also meeting to share the things that they were working around at home. All that being said, we are on a weekly basis assessing and reassessing how this is all working, how is it addressing our community needs. And there are some elements we were not able to activate, like social play. This is a big challenge right now, and it's a very essential part of our program.
Thank you so much, Mariam Al-Hajri. Francis Wilby, as the head of International Development and Support at Lumiar in the United Kingdom, you mentioned in the prior question very quickly about Lumiar Stafford, and I think that our viewers and listeners would be very interested to know a little bit more. So it's the first Lumiar school in the UK based on a working farm in the beautiful, indeed, southwest of England, and that's one of the things that progressive schools do really well, create links in the interdisciplinary. Can you share with us a little more about this initiative and how you view it as a part of furthering education in a meaningful manner? Dr. Francis Wilby.
Thank you. That's again a wonderful question. So Lumiar Stafford, is very unique in terms of applying the learning. So children actually see calves being born every week. They go around and feed the animals, and I think for us it's not only applying learning, so they obviously understand biology, they're linking food to farming, and they're looking at those chains that go through, and they're understanding that they're harvesting apples or nettles. Then they're going through into the cooking classroom, which is a linked part of the school called Stowford Education Centre, where they then cook with these materials. So they're applying this learning in all sorts of ways, but also the other kind of skills, and often, you know, those soft skills that people discuss, that actually learning about resilience or empathy and understanding that, for example, cleaning out the animal pens often is a big discussion. You might not want to do that in a rainy day in the UK where it's cold, but actually the understanding from the children that it needs something more, you know, it needs them to commit to something, and it allows them to start thinking not just about their own needs. So the whole farming community, we're very lucky that there are other workshops on the site as well. So there are artisans that work around the site. So really what we wanted for the children was this essence of diversity, really. And this notion of the Lumiere methodology is the idea that you work with tutors and masters, and the masters are these project experts that kind of drop in and out. And we're very lucky on the farm that we have that diversity. It's very important for children to not only just see the one teacher, but to really understand their place within the community. So thank you for the question, and I appreciate that not every school has that kind of benefit, but it's something that we do try to use and know it's very special.
Thank you so much for your answer. Rob Haben, you are the school manager at Agora in the Netherlands, and in an article that was published last year featuring your school, the title read, "Meet the School with No Classes, No Classrooms, and No Curriculum." What did the current epidemic bring forward, strengthen, or take away from that equation, Rob?
Well, what it strengthened was, of course, that triangle, what we were talking about before, the relationship between school, parents, and kids. But it also strengthened us in our core beliefs, in our core beliefs that our teachers can guide and assist children, but our children should be guided and assisted to learn everywhere, in every circumstance. So I've been talking a lot lately about the fact that the distance between learners and school grown bigger, but this is only true for children. When you are aged above 25, the distance between you as a learner and the school is very, very, very far from each other. So since we are trying to raise children to be a lifelong learner, it doesn't matter, it isn't that important how far the school is away. What's important is how we guide them and how we counsel them. And so it even got us talking here about our in regular circumstances, are we having the children too much in the school? Are our kids enough in the outside world? We even seeing now children doing certain things they want to achieve even better than they were doing them in our building. So I think this crisis, it is a crisis, of course, and I have a lot of pain and sorrow about all the people who are really having a hard time now. But we also should have a great look at the benefits, because our children are experiencing benefits, and we should keep them in the equation even after the crisis.
Thank you so much, Rob Haben. Felipe Secreblier, you are the founder of Hub School 21 in France, where after about 2 months of a lockdown, the lockdown has been lifted since yesterday. Congratulations. Mm-hmm. And most schools, about 86% of the schools in France are open since yesterday. However, many parents, that's a part of the triangle, the word parents that keeps coming back. Many parents remain skeptical about, sending their children to school. I know you're a mother of 4, as well as being an educator. How do you deal with reestablishing a safe community that a school is supposed to represent, and what can you tell us in a short minute about child safety and protection issues in schools, please? Fanny?
Okay, so thank you for the question. The thing that I have to specify that in France, schools are open, but only for young children. And even in the schools, only a few kids can go to school right now because if their parents are doctors or they're working in education or they're working in transports, but most of the kids are still at home right now. And in our school, we have 25 kids from 6 to 15. And at the moment, we are not allowed to welcome at school teenagers. It's not open for them yet. So it's very progressive. And as for the safety, I think it's one of the most important soft skills of today we have to use is to straighten critical thinking. And because during this period, we had a lot of digital information coming from internet and everything. And even for the kids and for the teachers, when selecting the right tool and the right site, for example, to use, or the right platform, needs to be really aware of data protection for sure, but also to have critical thinking on what it's really going to bring to the kids and for learning. So it's very important to work on this critical thinking, but it's already a tool we need to develop every day at school. So as for my
Indeed, that we need to develop and keep. I have, if I may, thank you so much, Fanny. I interrupted you, but so that we can go on in a little bit to the audience Q&A. I have one question to two of our panelists, please. We'll start with Gitanjali Sarangan, and then we'll go to Stuart Bamford. Is there a lesson, a wisdom, a word you can offer that this experience of COVID-19 has brought to our present time and we can perhaps use in the future? Gitanjali Sarangan from India.
I think the one word that really comes to my mind is a sense of interconnectedness and togetherness, because we are impacting each other. And COVID-19 is a standing example of how we impact each other, how there is a give and take in the system of learning. That's one. The other thing that I think is a huge takeaway for us is while we are focusing on content and how can we make the learning online possible for the children, the biggest learning for me personally, just watching children over the last 6 weeks, has been, it's not about what we give the children to learn, but it's fantastic to see how each child learns. Because we've kept them away from this saying, don't go to gadgets, stay away from gadgets. And now we're saying, sit with the laptop, sit with your phones, attend calls. So the children are figuring out their own ways of developing their attention system and learning. So I think these are the things that I would really hold very close, a huge sense of abundance, where we know we're not alone, we're all together in this, and we're all going to get out of this together. And at the same time, can we reach out to the many in grassroots organizations where this is not going to be available? So I still feel, that would be a huge sense of gratitude, abundance and interconnectedness.
Thank you so much, Gitanjali. It's interesting. I have a question that I saw for the audience Q&A that came from Sheikh Nouf Altani, who is the Executive Director of Strategic Initiatives and Partnerships at the Qatar Foundation. Sheikh Nouf Altani asks, what are some of the learnings from this pandemic that can be used to accelerate change within the traditional education systems? Now let's start with, perhaps let's try to get back to Stuart Bamford.
Thank you. Yeah, so words of wisdom, listen, just from an educator's or a school's perspective, I think it's really made us, it's at our core what's coming forward, and that's, we're asking everyone, not just 2, 3, 4, 15, 16, 17-year-olds, but we're asking everyone to be imaginative with education, to be brave with education, be creative with education, use your original thought, and for everyone to be kind. And that's the sense, that's the foundations of a rocket school approach anyway. And I think it's no more apparent than the adjustment we've made due to the current crisis we find ourselves in.
Thank you so much, Stuart. There's a question in the audience Q&A from Max. Max is asking you, do progressive education leaders feel a higher pressure in dealing with crisis situations at impossible level of creativity, progressiveness when business continuity is already a great challenge? Stuart, we were with you. Let's stay with you for this. Any answers you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think anyone who's found themselves in education right now has seen the challenges, and that's because most of us have found ourselves without a home, and therefore we've entered the world of parents' homes and families' homes, and people will obviously look to us to adapt either very quickly or to offer a solution as fast as we can. So yes, of course, and there's been pressure to adapt and to be creative, but as Rob and as everyone who's alluded to on the panel, I think this is our time to reinvest in education and reset. So yes, we're adapting quickly, but from an education perspective, maybe that's needed.
Thank you so much, Stuart. There are some wonderful audience questions. Let's have this one, if possible, from John W. And if I may ask Mariam Al-Hajri to answer. Mariam, John W. is asking, what are the non-negotiable components of virtual distance learning to ensure student learning? Mariam?
Yes, Max, thank you very much for that question. I think one of the biggest non-negotiables for progressive schools is taking away the children's agency, not allowing agency to manifest. One of the big non-negotiables for us is to always allow children to choose. Because in our setting, the most important things we're trying to build is that independent learner personality, is that creative problem solver mindset. So we don't want to do anything that will take away from this. And agency, choice, and nurturing curiosity is very, very important for all of this.
Thank you so much, Mariam Al-Hajri. Dear Rob Hubin from the Netherlands, there's a question specifically asked to you. So here I am relaying it. There are children who reach their teen years and don't know what they want and don't want to, or don't know how to drive their own learning. What can we do in early education to support students as they get older to succeed in a system when they're expected to learn or do what they're interested in? Rob Hubin, what would you say to that?
Well, I get kids in this school, and the parents tell us, or previous teachers tell us, that these kids don't want to learn anything. And for me, that's always up for debate, because most of the time they don't want to learn what you want to learn them. So first of all, you really need to listen to what children want to learn. And as I said, learn could also be challenging them to make something or do something. And if you start learning to listen like that, to that, and observe and reflect on that, then you will always figure out a way to get a kid from the learning mode he or she is and the learning goals they have to higher learning goals. But first of all, you have to give them the chance to proceed their own learning goals, because then you can be that great coach who helps them to reach their own targets. And if that is gaming, it should be gaming, because you get really sick of gaming after a while, especially if you see other kids making great stuff. So I think with most of the children, we give them the steering wheel and say, what do you want to do? And if they don't answer fast enough, we grab the steering wheel back and start steering again. And if you do that too fast, then you can always say that the child doesn't want to do anything.
That's wonderful. They're really thank you so much, audience, for participating in your great questions. There is one from Sylvia, and I think this could be for Gitanjali, Sarangan. Gitanjali, Sylvia asks this: what about when children lack direction? Which comes back to what Rob Houben was saying. Do they always have a well-defined project idea or passion? I know that you do a lot with the arts, and how would you answer that?
Clearly, they don't have a well-defined idea and passion, because if they do have it, then it is a very conditional response to content. So what I think we need to be present to is the 100% confidence that children are dynamic learners. They're going to pick up their systems of learning. While I want them to reach from A to B, in that process, they've reached C, D, E, F, G, and a lot more. And that is what brings this whole process alive. And that's a learning for us, because as parents and as schools, even progressive education, there is still a controlled environment of learning for them. I think when most of the schools which are today on this panel also are doing a lot of work, which from what we heard of outdoor education and learning. So you only provide the environment, and that's all that you can give. You give them that blank canvas, and they make the motives, and they make the colors, and they make it all. So that's the only plan, the only offering we can give them is that white canvas. They pick up their tools and skills. So that would be my answer to the question.
Thank you so much. There is a question. This will be for Dr. Francis Wilby from the United Kingdom, from one doctor to the other. So the question is from Dr. Fatma Al-Mawid for Dr. Francis Wilby. It is very good, she says, that this pandemic has benefits. But what about the real challenges that the pandemic imposed on children psychologically? And what about children who are not self-motivated to begin with? Dr. Francis Wilby.
Yeah, that's such a valuable and important question, I think, for us all to consider. So I guess there are two parts to my answer. The first is about when we go back. That's at the kind of top of my mind at the moment, is about what does transition look like? And I think this question is at the core of what a transition back into school should look like, that actually we need to be very mindful that schools should not be putting huge amounts of pressure on children who are coming back into this environment for the first time. They shouldn't be assessing straight away. They shouldn't be getting in and discussing with the children about why maybe, let's say, for example, younger children may not have spent so much time using a pen and pencil. Perhaps their fine motor skills have slightly dropped off. If we communicate that educate a sense of panic, that does not help anybody. So I would say the first issue is building self-esteem, confidence, trust, a happiness in the environment again. So those, I would say, just set very simple goals. When we're talking about transition, it really has to be kind of setting the stage for the child to be happy, first of all, in coming back into the environment, and then build from there. The other part of my answer would be about what's happening right now for children in their own spaces. I think, as we talked about here, it's very much about connection with the families. I think most educators are very mindful of the families that they probably know need more support, and it's about connecting directly to those parents by phone, by Zoom, and across kind of the schools that I've worked with. And I'm sure other people have these kind of anecdotal stories of teachers going above and beyond what connection means. So appearing outside, you know, as Miriam was saying about sending parcels of food to do their cooking, these things mean something to children. So I think what we need to communicate to them is they still so important to us. Without having that contact, how do you communicate that sense of love and trust and a bond with them? So if that means appearing maybe outside, you know, a house waving with a sign, that's what we've had in parts of Brazil to connect, then that's the key thing. So really coming back to our Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I would suggest, go back to the base of that triangle. How do we establish security, safety before we even think about going back up to writing skills?
Thank you so much. I will be taking one last question. There are so many, and I apologize that I'm not able to get to all of them, but we have to end pretty soon. Let's take the question from Aquila and Fanny Pessé-Criblier, if you could kindly answer that. So Aquila asks, what about kids who don't have access to gadgets? For example, in government schools or kids from below the poverty line, what are the ideas to bring education to them too? Wonderful question. Fanny Pessé-Criblier.
It's a very strong and hard question, because the fact is, during this distance learning period, the only way to communicate with family was using the digital schools, whereas it's not at all the way we are doing naturally at school. Because of course, digital tools are only one of the tools to find answers to the questions. What we are used to tell kids at school is who or what is going to help you to find your answer. Is it an adult? Is it a digital tool? Is it your neighbor? Is it your parents? And here, during this pandemic, it was really difficult to reach kids without digital tools. So because we couldn't meet each other, we couldn't organize meetings or go close to the kids. So the only way to access during the period was using digital skills. But in our society, we know in our school, for example, every kid was connected, wherever he comes from. We had to find solutions between family using their parents' cell phones, for example, or the neighbors, or I don't know, but we have to be creative in the way we access tools, but it was the only way.
Well, this is just the beginning. Dear audience members, thank you so much for participating. We did our best to get to your questions, but time flies and time is limited. But if for you these questions are really important to share with our speakers, you can please connect with us and send your questions to leaps@qf.org.qa. I would like to take this moment to thank one by one from Qatar, Mariam Al-Hadri, Director of Academiati. From the United Kingdom, Dr. Francis Wilby, Head of International Development at Lumiere Education.
Thank you.
From the Netherlands, Rob Hubin, School Manager of Agora. From the UK, Stuart Bamford, Co-founder of Kingsland Pre-Prep. From India, Gitanjali Sarangan, Founder and Executive Director of Dhara Foundation. And from France, Fanny Pessé-Criblier, Founder of Hub School 21. Thank you all very much. What does the future hold, particularly after COVID-19? From today's discussion rises a strong desire to build a dialogue among schools from around the world who aim to reinvent, innovate, influence, and inspire the educational ecosystem in order to help support the generations of today and tomorrow. In times of social distancing and remote learning, words that we are learning also to incorporate into our daily conversations. There is much that progressive schools can offer, and this webinar has certainly been a call to action for long-term practices. One thing comes crystal clear to me from today's conversation with our wonderful 6 speakers. Education is indeed a powerful catalyst for change. My name is Ayşe Gülsert. It's been a pleasure to be a part of this conversation. Until next time, goodbye.